Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into this incredible ancient story that's actually all about a super modern problem, the danger of only hearing what you want to hear. So, let's start with a question for you. Think about it. When you've already made up your mind about something big, what are you really looking for when you ask for advice? Are you actually open to hearing the hard truth, or are you just kind of hoping someone will give you that rubber stamp, that yes, you've already decided on? Just keep that in the back of your mind. All right, so let's set the scene here. Our story kicks off with a powerful king, a crucial alliance, and, well, a pretty ambitious plan for war. So meet King Ahab of Israel. He's got his eyes on this city, Ramoth Gilead. And look, this isn't just any old town. It was a massive strategic crossroads, controlling two huge trade routes. If you controlled Ramoth Gilead, you basically controlled the money and the power in the whole area. So Ahab is convinced the city should be his, and he's ready to go to war for it. He's got the army, he's got the strategy. All he needs now is just a little nod from the divine. You know, a green light from God. And that's where King Jehoshaphat of Judah comes in. He's Ahab's ally, they're connected by marriage. Now, the source material tells us he's a good guy, but maybe not the sharpest tool in the shed. But here's the thing, and this is so interesting. You don't have to be a genius to have good spiritual instincts. So when Ahab tells him the plan, Jehoshaphat's right. Yeah, I'm in. I'll help. But he has one simple request, and this one little question changes everything. He says, hey, before we do this, let's ask a prophet what God thinks.
Now, Ahab probably thinks, easy peasy, no problem. And this, my friends, is where we step right into the echo chamber.
400. Just let that number sink in for a second. 400. That's how many prophets King Ahab has on his payroll. And you should probably think of them less like holy messengers and more like a royal advisory board or a massive focus group he can call on anytime. So what do you think all 400 of them say in perfect, beautiful harmony? It is a massive, enthusiastic, unanimous yes. They tell him, go for it. You're going to win. God's going to hand it right to you. I mean, it's the perfect message, right? It's completely tailor-made for a king who's already decided what he's going to do. Yeah, these guys were what you'd call professional prophets. And back in the ancient world, this was a real job, a highly skilled and often very well-paid profession. Now, officially, their job was to read the signs, the stars, the way birds fly, even the guts of a sacrificed animal, and figure out what it all meant. But let's be real, their real job, it was to tell the king what he wanted to hear. And just make sure it sounded like it came straight from the gods. They were constantly walking this really fine line between politics and actual prophecy. But even with this overwhelming 400-0 vote of confidence, Jehoshaphat's spiritual radar starts going off. Something just feels wrong. It's all a little too neat, a little too perfect. He can tell these guys are on the king's payroll. So he asks this absolutely critical question. He's basically saying, hey, isn't there anyone left around here who isn't paid to agree with you? And what do you know? It turns out there is. There is one person, the one guy King Ahab absolutely positively does not want to hear from.
And Ahab's response just says it all. It perfectly shows you his mindset. His complaint about this other prophet, a guy named Micaiah, isn't, oh, he's a liar or his predictions are always wrong. No, it's simply he never says anything good about me. See? Ahab isn't looking for the truth. He's shopping for affirmation. He doesn't want a prophet. He wants a cheerleader.
So they send for Micaiah. But check out the pressure this guy is under before he even gets to the king. The messenger who goes to get him pulls him aside and pretty much says, look, buddy, 400 other guys are singing the same tune. This is your chance to get on the winning team. Don't be the one who messes this up for everyone. I mean, the pressure to just go along with it must have been immense. And this all builds to the incredible climax of the story, where the truth is finally going to come out, whether the king is ready for it or not. So when Micaiah finally gets in front of the king, at first he just says what everyone else said, and you can just imagine the sarcasm dripping from his voice. Oh yeah, go on, attack and be victorious. But Ahab's not a complete idiot. He knows Micaiah is messing with him, and he demands the real prophecy. And that's when Micaiah drops the bombshell. He tells them the horrifying truth. He saw a vision of Israel's army scattered, defeated, like sheep without a shepherd, because their shepherd, King Ahab, was going to die. Okay, so how could 400 prophets be so spectacularly wrong? Micaiah explains that God allowed a lying spirit to speak through them. Now, I know that sounds really weird, right? Like God is tricking people on purpose.
but the source material explains it in a more nuanced way. It's not about God forcing a lie on anyone. It's more about God setting up the world in a way that it confirms us in the choices we've already made. Ahab desperately wanted to believe a lie, so God basically let the world provide him with the exact lie he was looking for. And this idea is actually rooted in texts like this one from Psalm 18. The principle is that reality, in a sense, reflects our own attitude back at us. If you go out into the world looking for faithfulness, you'll find it. But if you go out with a devious heart, always looking for ways to twist the truth to get what you want, well, the world will twist right back at you.
So what's the big deal? What does this ancient story about some kings and prophets have to do with any of us right here today? Let's circle all the way back to that first question I asked you. When we ask for advice, how often are we really just like Ahab? We've already made up our minds, who we're going to date, what job we're going to take, what we believe, and we're just out there shopping for a prophet to tell us it's a fantastic idea. We're not actually looking for guidance. We're looking for permission. And this is the truly frightening lesson from this whole story. The universe, God, whatever you want to call it, will often let you have exactly what you want. If you are dead set on going down a certain path, even a path that leads straight to disaster, you will find more than enough signs and voices cheering you on. You won't be physically stopped. Ahab's final move just proves the point perfectly. After hearing the raw, unfiltered life-or-death truth, what does he do? He attacks the messenger. He throws Micaiah in prison and tells the guards to feed him nothing but bread and water until I come back. It's just the ultimate act of denial, right? A desperate, final attempt to force his own version of reality into being true. Of course, he never came back. So we're going to end where we started, with a question for you. What's your echo chamber? Who are your 400 prophets? Is it your social media feed, the news channel you only ever watch? Maybe it's those friends who just always agree with you no matter what. See, we all build these little echo chambers to protect our egos and our plans. And the challenge this story leaves us with is this. Do we have the courage to find, and more importantly, to actually listen to that one single unwanted voice of truth?